We're here today to discuss how African countries can navigate the new world economic order instigated by US President Donald Trump so far this year. We're doing this ahead of a member-exclusive webinar that we're running for our members on UK opportunities in Africa when it comes to trade. We'll post a link into the comments so you can find out more about that event. But before we do that, let's discuss the broader context of Africa trade in 2025. We have a fantastic panel of preeminent trade experts from Africa for today. So I'm delighted to welcome Professor Gia James, the former Dean of the University of Nairobi Business School and the Chair of the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade's Africa Advisory Board. Dr. Rose Wano, a trade consultant in Nairobi, the CEO of TradeSmart Consult, and also a member of the Chartered Institute's Africa Advisory Board, and Dr. Othon Udofia, who is the CEO of the Institute of Export Operations and Management in Nigeria. Rose, if I could begin with yourself, could you just say a little bit about what the impact of Trump has been so far on trade and within trade in Africa?
You will agree with me that the world changed in January of this year when Donald Trump was sworn in to become the president of the US, especially in the aspect of trade. A lot changed in terms of the policies that he put in place that prioritized America first. So basically, as opposed to the initial world order of open trade, the America now has embraced protectionism. And you can see this from some of the examples of tariffs that have been imposed, and some of which have affected Africa. For example, South Africa is a major exporter of steel to the US and have highly been affected by this. We also have weakening multilateral institutions. Already, even before Trump became president, America had already disabled the WTO, the World Trade Organization, by blocking the appointment of the appellate body. And this had already really weakened this multilateral institution. And with the stance of America taking protectionism stand, this has further weakened the WTO, which has been a body that has really, been supporting or even African countries and many developing countries have been using the multilateral mechanism to ensure that trade is fair between the big countries and also the small countries. And we also have bodies such as the World Health Organization that have not been spared, bodies that have really been instrumental, especially in fighting pandemics, and the COVID-19 pandemic. They were very instrumental in that. So you can see there's a complete change that happened. There's also a movement towards a preference toward bilateral agreements. And you can see quite a number of countries are now moving towards negotiating bilateral agreements with the US. Morocco does have one. Kenya is in the process of negotiating a strategic partnership with the US. But this can be seen as being unfair because not every country does have the power to be able to negotiate, or even the capacity to be able to negotiate bilateral agreements with big countries such as the US. In terms of what African countries need to do, I think the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is a blessing in disguise at this point, because I think with the absence of aid, which the US has quite a bit cut back on, and also is also regulating quite a bit of its trade with a lot of African countries, I think the Africa Continental Free Trade Area becomes a mechanism that we need to go back to as African countries. We need to trade more amongst each other. We need to be able to now, go towards being independent as opposed to relying on aid, as opposed to relying on debt, which America has been a large, supporter of African countries in terms of aid and debt.
Thank you, Rose. Some really important points there about the seismic effects that Trump has had on the rules-based multilateral global trading system, and also beyond on things like aid and health as well. Really important to note that. Also, you mentioned the African Continental Free Trade Area and the importance of intra-African trade too. Really important points. If I can bring in Dr. Othon, what do you see as being the main risks and opportunities in this new context, which Rose has outlined?
Yes, it actually poses a risk because from the what Trump has just done, the our relationship with them in terms of getting aids is being threatened. He has suspended USID, which a lot of African countries were relying on that to boost the economy and the rest of the thing. Then the opportunity is that African countries have the right now to look around them among themselves in terms of the African continental free trade. How do we do business with each other? That will boost our trade, and then also look outside the West to China, Russia, and the rest of the world to see what they can do, because like we're so dependent on the West. So with this, it will really make us to think outside the box, and you could even know that even the African Growth and Opportunity Act was not properly utilized. So now African now know that they can fend for themselves. So there are opportunities that we can get from there.
Great, thank you, Dr. Offon. Some really important points again there about the importance of African countries looking beyond traditional markets that they've tended to trade with, including the West, so looking at places like China, as you mentioned. Dr. James, just to bring you into this now, let's talk about what African countries are doing. What can they do now to actually strategically respond to this new context?
They say that you should never waste a good crisis. It's an opportunity. Africa has largely relied on some form of good relations or expecting good relations, fair trade, and all that. But now, with the current trade regime, the current New World Order, according to Donald Trump, he has put America first. So Africa may now need to look at itself more clearly and take the chance to relook at itself and its strategic positioning, knowing that strategy is really a game of winning. So Africa needs to be much more looking at the world as a competition and start looking at its own strengths. The first thing they could do, or we ought to do as Africans, is to look at our trade strategy, because currently, because of our historical reliance on the West due to colonial relations, we tend to be more oriented toward the West in large chunks of Africa. So we need to diversify our trade partners much more. Yes, we work a lot with China and others, but now we need to look more at Asia, Latin America, Eastern Europe, much more closely, not exclusive. And very important for Africa is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is really just one of our biggest opportunities. It's a very crucial response because if we make AFTA fully implemented, we can boost our intra-Africa trade and, very important, enhance our collective bargaining power on the global stage. By being united in this way, we can actually be more able to stand up to any unfair or looking trade-related actions by other countries. In terms of the United States, we want to be much more strategic in our response to them, looking at our own interests in terms of market access. Africa is very attractive. So we need to use that, the young population, mineral supply chain. We need to make stronger case.
Thank you, Professor James. Again, some really important points there, particularly the importance of diversification. You also mentioned the importance of the African Continental Free Trade Area, but also just on that last point, obviously Africa is a major exporter of raw materials, but one of the challenges so far has been getting it to have more value-add manufacturing within Africa as a way of boosting the value of exports. I wonder, Dr. Offon, do you want to just come in on that? Why is this so important?
That is very important because I always tend to be against the law of comparative advantage. Do what you can do. It is a high time that we stop exporting raw materials. Africans have cocoa, yet we don't produce chocolate. So we need to add value, and in adding value, we need to look at standards. But that has been a very big problem in Africa. Then look at packaging. Most of the things are well packaged, but our packaging is poor. Like, for instance, in my country, because of our large population, anything goes. So they all are also on the view that they can send that sort of thing to the international market. It wouldn't fly. So there should be a deliberate action to train people and retrain people, because in the ecosystem, there's a very big knowledge gap. So that's why I believe that the Charter Institute and our own institute can work together in conjunction with Prof to see what we can do for Africans. Take training from one level to the other, from certification to packaging.
Brilliant. Some more really important points there. So thank you, Dr. Offer, and thank you to all of our panel today. A really great conversation introducing the context within which African trade is taking place in 2025. Members of the Chartered Institute will get access to more panels like this and lunchtime learning webinars, such as the one we're running on the 10th of July about opportunities for UK businesses in particular in Africa. So do definitely sign up to that webinar if you're a member, or sign up if you want to become a member to get that access. You can go to export.org.uk/membership for more details.